going on at work? Slow week. We're now December. We're recording Tuesday, December 27th.
Yeah.
It's a slow week for us, although we are operational. I have some people that are out for the week, but and some businesses definitely happening. What about you?
Yeah, I mean the biggest thing for us, which was definitely a good thing and definitely something that we followed over the week, was the passing of the Secure Act too. And I was kind of teasing you about that, but it did pass. So it passed this through the Senate on Thursday, and then the House on Friday. And it's
What is the Secure Act?
Yeah, Secure Act 2.0. So Secure Act 1.0 was the past buzzer beater again at the end of 2019. So this time around, they added it to the omnibus spending bill, which is, one of those, the government's going to shut down, that whole exhausting process. So it was just inserted in their 4,000-page bill. Secure Act
Just 4,000, huh?
Just 4,000, yeah. But if you ever read those things, it's kind of interesting. The number of words per page is actually pretty small, because they put a lot of headlines in with big fonts, and then they number every line for reference. So the margins are pretty narrow. So again, not that probably most of them didn't read it, but I actually did scan through all the Secure Act stuff that starts, I believe, at page 2282. So I did go through that. Let's see what he's pulling up here. Yeah.
Is this? I just Googled it, and Fidelity looks like it has a page here. Key takeaways: the age to start taking RMDs increases to 73 in 2000. What's an RMD?
So that's the required minimum distribution. So they force you to take money out of a pre-tax IRA or 401k at a certain age, which is kind of a pain. But so the more we can move, so we can just pause on that, because that's one of these ridiculous things. So it used to be 70 and a half, which everybody hated, because for whatever reason they had a half year in there. Now they've actually moved it up to full years. So it's the year you turn that age. So the government does that because you have to take that money out on a pre-tax, which means you have to pay tax on it. So the government gets those tax dollars. And that's the sole purpose for having required minimum distribution. But it's one of those penny wise, pound foolish things, because they'd actually be better off financially to get rid of the RMD and let people continue to grow the IRA on their own, and then take the money when they retire, because the person is going to be a better investor than the government is. So rather than force them to take it out at age 73, it's like, let them run to 100 and then clip it when they pass away. So every time they move these, it's actually beneficial to the government and beneficial to the people with the IRAs. So everybody's like, well, why do you even have the RMD? So anyway, that's
Okay.
so we've gone from 70 and a half to 75 in the manner of 3 years. So the later the better on those. So that's that.
What else? The penalty for failing to take an RMD will decrease to 25% of the RMD amount from 50% currently, and 10% if corrected in a timely manner for IRAs.
Yeah, so that penalty was excessive. So a lot of people, especially, again, small people with not small people, but people with smaller accounts, and sometimes people who are less financially literate, didn't understand that they had to take money from their IRAs, and the 70 and a half thing was crazy. And if you had to take out 2,000 and you missed it, your penalty was $1,000. It's crazy to penalize people, 50%. So I'm glad that that's changed, because that's
wild.
Yeah.
Starting in 24, RMDs will no longer be required from Roth accounts and employer retirement plans.
Yeah, that's a relatively minor deal, but it was kind of a pain, because you had different rules for Roth IRA versus the Roth bucket and the 401k plan. So if you had Roth bucket in your 401k plan, you had to take RMDs, whereas if you had a Roth IRA, you did not. So usually the advice was to obviously roll the Roth money out of the 401k if you were retired, but having the same rules for both sides of the transaction makes sense now. So that's a good thing.
Catch-up contributions will increase in 2025 for 401k, 403b, government plans, and IRA account holders.
Yeah, that's so what they did there is they're going to key the the increases, it's going to be tied to inflation, which is a good thing. So anytime you can allow people to put more money away. So you always have two different limits. You have the limit that, everybody can put into their 401ks and IRAs, and then you have a catch-up provision. So those people 50 and older can put in a little bit more, in essence, to catch up for the years that they missed. So now those catch-up provisions are a lot higher than they were before. So it's
All
a
right.
good thing.
Defined contribution retirement plans will be able to add an emergency savings account associated with a Roth account.
Yeah, so this is okay. I'm kind of neutral on this. It's one of those things that sound good in theory. The mechanics behind it, and the fact that the infrastructure has to be built on that, the 401k, and basically the rules were, your money's in your 401k, it's retirement money. If you have an emergency and you need to take money out, there's hardship. You can take a loan or hardship distribution, and that whole thing is taxable and penalized. But now they're saying, listen, if you need $1,000 and you can take it from your 401k, you can take it out without any sort of penalty or taxes on that. So it's probably a good thing. A lot of times what I'm doing now with the 401k plans is just saying, all right, you're putting this away for retirement, which is great, but a lot of times that becomes people's only savings because it's so easy and it's going through work and whatever. So I'll bring like another account application, just be like, listen, you're 22 years old, don't max out your 401k plan. You're going to get married, you're going to have kids, you're going to have a million things that are going to come up before retirement. So take $25 a paycheck, put it in this separate account, and build up your emergency savings too. So I think the plans with good advisors, which I like to throw myself in, or have already kind of handled this problem. And I think this maybe will kind of complicate things and kind of add a feature that's not necessarily needed, but there's my thoughts on that.
All right. So why do they call it the Secure Act?
It's a silly acronym. So it's setting up every, let me think of this, it's setting up every American for retirement or something like that. So
okay.
Yeah, they use acronyms for all these.
All right. So this Fidelity article seems to catch the drift, I guess.
They did. So there's some other stuff in there that's I think is going to be a little bit bigger deal than some of the articles are talking about. So there's some significant tax credits in there for new businesses starting 401k plans. So the way it was structured before is you'd get a 50% credit of whatever your fees were for the first 3 years to encourage these businesses to start 401k plans, to increase the coverage. And then there was an additional $500 for using automatic enrollment. So with Secure Act 2.0, automatic enrollment is now the standard for every plan. So a small business starts a 401k plan, all of their employees are automatically enrolled, and they have to go in to opt out. So all the numbers are better for those type of plans. They show that basically people are lazy, and if you ask them to sign up, they never will. And if you ask them to sign out, they never will. So it's in their best interest to have automatic enrollment. But because automatic enrollment is now the standard, they can't give necessarily a tax credit for that because the business isn't necessarily taking any initiative. So what they did is they actually have now 100% tax credit for the first 3 years. So you can go into a business, I can go up and down the, Queen Street in Southington and say, hey, you can start a 401k plan, cost you nothing for the first 3 years. And then in 3 years, it may be extended or whatever anyway, but that's pretty significant. So hopefully that increases coverage. I think that's probably going to draw a line through some of the state programs that they're trying to do, because why would you enroll in Connecticut My CT Savings? And their whole thing was it saves you all this money as a business owner, but if for a business owner, it's free anyway. So I think that's going to be significant. You don't hear a lot about it because the small business, startup plan market is, it's crap that only idiots like me want to deal with, because there's no money in there. That's not a profitable area of business for record keepers or advisors. But I think the fact that you can go into your local bakery now and say, hey, 401k, we'll do it super efficient. Doesn't matter if you got 4 or 5 employees. Let's do it. It's not going to cost you anything. And here's how we do it. So that's a pretty big deal. So I'm excited about that.
All right. Well, switching to anything else on your side of the house, I guess?
No, no, I don't. I had something else if for some filler if you didn't have anything, but I'm looking forward to your
No, that's okay.
technology thing here. What do you
I'm
got?
Our producer Nathan is telling us to keep it short and sweet, so I'm trying to keep us moving along. And
Yeah.
right now, you talked about the headline is going to be Brian talks Secure Act 2.0,
Mhm.
and then more than likely whatever I bring to the table. So but certainly not to cut you off short or to um, steer the conversation. If you have anything, what do you got?
Well, so I was going to talk about do I have another window here? Where is my other window? So I was going to talk just briefly about capital market assumptions, and it's kind of nerdy, but I promise not to make it that nerdy.
Go
Um,
for it.
so basically, what happens is when you've got all these companies that make their predictions, right? So the ones that are like a year, what's going to happen in 2023? Who cares? They were all wrong a year ago. None of them predicted that both the stock and bond market would be down. But what the longer term ones are useful because advisors will typically aggregate these together to use them as a basis for their retirement plan projection. So somebody's 50 years old and they want to know how much money they'll have in 15 years. You have to use a number. So you're using a number that's based on what people think the market's going to do or what it has historically done. And usually that number doesn't really move too much. But let me share a tab here. So what I have here is this is this is capital market assumptions from Vanguard. So this is based on this one came out for December 2022. So they're predicting over the next 10 years, U.S. equities, U.S. stocks will do between 4.7 and 6.7. So let's assume that their projection now for the next 10 years is 5.7. So you say, all right, well, what did they do? What did they do last year? What was their predictions last year, right? How smart
Yeah,
were
I
they
have
about
zero faith in these these so-called analysts. But go ahead.
I know. I know. The longer term stuff I'm okay with because it's a lot easier to predict things how they're going to be in 10 years than it is in 1 year. It's like wait.
Right.
So share this other screen here. So this is what they were in 2021. So they were predicting for the next 10 years somewhere between 2.3 and 4.3. So let's call it 3.3. So in the course of 1 year, their forward projected returns have gone from 3.3 to 5.7. So how does that factor in? Excuse me. Nate can edit out that good cough there. But so what
Yeah,
happens is
I'm dying over here too. Sorry.
people will say we could just cough on 3 and just sync those up so that Nate can make one slide. So when somebody's 50, they say, well, the market got killed this year. My account's down 20%. What does that do to my retirement projections? And you say, well, actually, it doesn't change them because when you have a bad year, your future projections go up, right? So if you were anticipating that you were going to do 5% the next 10 years and you have an awful year where you're down 20, now you're going to predict 6% for the next 10 years. And that's not necessarily being, funny or deceptive with the numbers or anything like that. You're just taking that one bad year and say, well, okay, well, now we had a bad year. We're starting from a lower number. So the projections are a little bit higher. So when you take somebody and you say, all right, at the end of 2021, we predicted you'd have this much in 10 years. Now you're down 20%. The first year, we just basically raised the projections for the next 9 years. You kind of end up at the same number anyway. So the companies that put these out, they're forward looking, but they're starting from a much lower point this year. So you're going to see higher projections. So anyways, that's just kind of something that the industry does and how we factor in. And basically the idea is we're trying to smooth out the the projected earnings, and because it doesn't make sense for you told them a year ago they were going to end up with $1 million at 60, and now you're going to tell them, well, you're only going to end up with 800,000. Well, that's pretty significant if you're just always keeping your assumptions the same. If you just always have in your system that the market's going to do 6% for the next 10 years, you're not taking into an account that the market just dropped 20%. So basically you just adjust your forward projection. So something to keep in mind as you're looking through these.
I love this. Look at the first bullet point under key highlights. This is why normals like me hate this kind of financial stuff. Next year, Vanguard expects a U.S. recession and growth of 0.25% to 0.5%.
Yep.
They just said both negative and positive in the same sentence.
Right. Yeah, I know. It is a pain. So they're saying a recession is, well, we sort of changed
down
the
quarters
definition, but yeah. So obviously they're expecting that to happen early in 2023 and then to make up for that later on. But if we go back a year, what were they saying, right? Economic recovery through 22 at a naturally slower pace. Give them maybe a B on that.
Right.
Tapering program sets a stage for Vanguard, believing in a late 2022 interest rate hike. Well, we had a lot of interest rate hikes in 2022, so they started a little bit earlier. See inflation persisting above 2% towards the end of 2022. So they completely missed the mark on that, as inflation's been quite a bit higher than that. So
yeah, interesting.
Yep, interesting.
So
but I mean,
tell me,
Vanguard's not like a headline grabber or anybody who's going to be sensational. That's why I picked them. But I mean, you'll see now people predicting, well, market's going to be up 25% next year. You'll see down 25%. I mean,
right. Pick your analyst and pick your point in time, and you can get anything. You can get any answer you want.